Welcome, everybody. My name is Dave Hirschman. Uh, Today's webinar is called Maximum Sphere Marketing, or subtitled Identify, Grow, and Deliver Value to Your Sphere. If you just joined us, you are muted out. You can ask questions and make comments using the panel on your screen, and I will cover questions at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and so we will distribute the recordation information later on. Quick introduction to myself. My name again is Dave Hirschman. Produced over 600 transactions my first 18 months in the industry, including closing 60 in my 12th month. I run sales forces for large production and technology organizations. Authored 7 books and hundreds of articles in the areas of finance, management, sales, and marketing. Helped found the Federal Bank, serving as a director, and been a keynote speaker at hundreds of industry events. Our website's originationpro.com. Our goals today: increase your referrals, decrease your reliance on cold calling or purchasing leads, understanding the importance of your sphere, understand the makeup of your sphere, and setting up a marketing plan based upon delivering value to your sphere. We're going to talk about value at the end. Again, I want to make sure you feel free to ask questions, which we will cover at the end of the webinar. I do want to take a moment to welcome trial members of the Origination Pro and Realtor Pro marketing systems and mortgage school students. Trial members have access to our complete marketing system. You can email us if you want a tour, or if you didn't get a password or user ID. If you've not signed up for the trial, this is where you can sign up. We will not be going over this system today, as we have many guests with us who are not in the mortgage finance industry. You'll get a follow-up email for such, but today this is a commercial-free program, so you won't know anything else about our products or offerings today. So let's start out and talk about why sphere marketing is important. I'm going to introduce about 8 or so concepts today, at least four at the beginning. In short, this is the most important marketing concept you will ever hear, and this is what it is. Top producers get their business by referral. Their referrals come from their sphere. The larger your sphere, the more value you deliver to your sphere, the more referrals you will get. This is simple, not necessarily easy, because if it was easy, everybody would be a top producer. Today, I hopefully are going to move you closer to that goal. Concept number 2. Your sphere is more than a database. It's a compendium of your life. It includes your skills, relationships, experiences, interests, strengths, even your weaknesses, and your total background. Our goals today is to open up your eyes and to change the way you think about who you know and how you can get them to help you. Concept number 3, which is more effective? Buying leads or advertising, or getting referrals from your sphere. Buying leads and advertising are expensive, and you will have cold calls, while generating referrals from your sphere, inexpensive and warm calls. And let me ask you another question. If you're on the line and you're new, we tell new people you can't go the referral route because you're new. Well, this message is false, because everyone has a sphere. That's because everyone has a life. And I put in there hiring tip. If you're a manager hiring loan officers or realtors or anybody else, finding out how extensive somebody's sphere is the first step to helping them do more business. Concept number 4. Sphere marketing applies to loan officers and realtors and all business people as well. That includes CPA, insurance agents, and more. Anybody who's in sales or who's in business. And it even applies to those of you who are managers to the recruiting process as well. And the last concept to start us off is today's webinar is not about badgering your friends and family about buying homes or something else. It's about leveraging relationships, and more importantly, something we don't do enough is telling people we know how to help you. The ultimate message we're going to talk about today is best illustrated by a story which was made famous by Russell Conwell, who is the founder of Temple University. He related a story that actually comes from ancient Africa, and it's called Acres of Diamonds. And it's about a rich family who had a great life. A rich farmer with a great life and a beautiful family. And everything anybody's heart would desire, enough to eat, a beautiful property, rivers and streams running through the property. But he kept hearing about all these people that were traveling to a faraway land and getting rich because they were all finding diamonds. He became obsessed with that story. He finally told his family that he had to go away for a while and search for these diamonds. Well, he never found them. As a matter of fact, he never returned. He died poor. His family became poor without somebody to run the farm. The farm was lost. Today, we would say the farm was foreclosed upon. What happened back at the farm? Many years later, the new owner was entertaining. And he was in a room with a fireplace, and one of his guests noticed a beautiful stone on the fireplace. And he said, "Where did you get that beautiful stone?" And he said, "Well, there are stones all over the creek, and everything's running through our property." And he said, "Well, you know what? I am an amateur gemologist. I really think you've got something here." And they went and they investigated. Turned out it was the biggest diamond anybody had ever seen. And it also turned out that the farm was sitting on the biggest load of diamonds in the world. So what's the message here? Well, my question to you is, are you sending emails or postcards to those you don't know while ignoring your personal sphere? Because your personal sphere is the diamond mine. It is the gold mine if you look at it in the right way. So let's start. I talked about a marketing plan, and I know everybody on the line has always been told you need to have a marketing plan. The problem with that is if you spoke to 100 people and asked them what a marketing plan is, you would get 100 different answers. So I'm going to show you simply what a sphere marketing plan looks like today. And it is very simple. It's 4 steps. Identify your sphere, which, by the way, means going backwards. Grow your sphere, which means going forward. Prioritize your sphere. We're going to look at the end, the pyramid, and then deliver value to your sphere. Now, even though I said this is simple, and I don't think anybody would disagree, this is absolutely simple. Let's not confuse simple with easy. The goal here is to take your database and take it from 100, 200, or 300 and move it from 3,000 or more. Today, we're going to focus just on step one. We are going to mention 2, 3, and 4 because they are important. But the way I look at it is, if you don't identify your sphere, how big it is right now, you can't take advantage of it, so you can't do the other steps that you want to do. And even your present sphere is your key to growing your sphere in the future. So let's look at step one, identification of your sphere. Most marketing gurus will tell you never to look back and to cull your database on a regular basis. I'm going to tell you never to remove contacts from your database today, even if they move out. Maybe if they die, that would be a good reason. You've left behind more than you have in your database. It's guaranteed. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, I sold them a home 8 years ago and I haven't spoken to them, kept up with them. Well, to quote Martin Luther King Jr., it's never too late to do what's right. It's never too late to call somebody up and say, I've been thinking about you. You don't call them up and say, I haven't spoken to you for 8 years. You have a referral for me? Call them up and find out what's going on in their lives, catch up with them, and by the way, many of you have been in business for a long time. Maybe you don't have email addresses of these people and so forth. Well, it's a good time to update your database. Again, the goal is to move from 300 to 1,000 or more, and not from purchasing a list. Now, the next question is, where's all this data going to come from? Here's the good news. You have databases all around you. Electronic. You've got your Outlook contacts, your personal email, Gmail, Yahoo. Your smartphone is a database. Facebook, LinkedIn, your old ACT database, Excel spreadsheets, your LOS system if you're in the mortgage business. Those are all databases. Paper-wise, they're also all around you. Business cards, old prospect lists, old calendars, even old files. Centralization of the data is important. It's impossible to market effectively with data in 10 different places. The social media factor, I already mentioned Facebook and LinkedIn. Social media figures prominently into this equation. It's a form to build your database. It's a way to grow your database, and it provides an avenue to deliver value without email. Remember this, some will open up email, others will open up Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. Others will read their snail mail. Your long-term marketing plan needs to be diversified. It shouldn't be one thing or the other. Let's talk about the major components of your sphere. There are two major components. There's a commonality component and a relationship component. And I'm going to give you church as an example. Let's say you go to church or temple or mosque, whatever you go to, if you go to something. Let's say there's 500 members of that church. And let's say there's 50 people that you know and they know you. That's the relationship component. There's 450 people that you have something in common with because you attend the same church. So, why is each important? Well, the relationship component are your most important targets. We'll talk about them when we speak about prioritization. The commonality component is going to add the greatest numbers to your database because it's something you have somebody you have something in common with. If you hear me hesitating at times, I told everybody I do read the panel. Keep in mind, You could put comments and ask questions as we go. I will be checking it to make sure there's no audio issues at times. Within your sphere, you'll also have microspheres. 2 examples. Everyone in your sphere has their own sphere. Reaching the spheres of the people in your sphere is a major marketing goal. They may know CPAs, financial planners, and other great referral sources. Every transaction has a sphere itself. Go deeper. I could present an entire marketing session just on and I have, by the way, just on marketing the transaction. You can make a living just on marketing your closings alone. And by the way, for lead-based companies, if you are a lead-based person, that makes your leads a renewable resource. I like renewable resources, so you don't have to pay for leads there forever. Then in your sphere, we also have macrospheres. Larger entities have even larger spheres. Think of the sphere of a bank. Think of the sphere of a real estate office or a large company. These entities are gold mines if you know how to go mine them. For example, the board of a bank or a real estate office. I was on the board of a bank, and we had a mortgage company, and nobody called on us. And there were people who owned title companies and knew tons of people, but nobody called on the board. And of course, real estate office. We have a lot of people today here from Reichert Realtors, and a real estate office in itself has a sphere, from the vendors to the previous customers and more. Even the geographic location. I see these offices, and I see a financial planning office in the same building. Just questions I have. Now, next step, once you know the components, is to segment the sphere, because not everyone receives the same value. When you're delivering value, you must realize that certain segments of your sphere will need different value than other segments. So let's look at the segments, and this is a really important exercise. This is where we start talking about adding numbers, not just your church, but more. Personal sphere, friends, family, and neighbors, present and previous customers, previous prospects, associations, vendors, coworkers, professionals, and top referral sources. And some contacts may exist in more than one category. Don't worry about that. For example, a vendor can also become a previous customer, certainly. So let's look at these categories in more depth. Let's start with the personal sphere, which is, to me, the most important category. From my book, Maximum Synergy Marketing, I define a great target as someone who has a high concentration of business and you have a close personal relationship with. So this is where the relationships are coming. Friends, family, and neighbors. Your closest friends. And by the way, for many, call reluctance becomes an issue with friends. I've heard the objections before. Oh, they don't want to do business with me. I know them too well, Well, here's a major rule here. People do business with people they like. And I would have to assume your friends, family members, and neighbors know and like you. My question to you is, they know you as a loan officer or a realtor or as an expert. This is called positioning. We will come back to it. Let me just relate a question to you guys. How many times have you sat down with somebody, a friend, family member, neighbor, maybe you only see him twice a year, so you have lunch or drinks or something, and the conversation starts like this. I just sold one of my investment properties, and it was a pain. You're in the real estate business, or you're in the mortgage business. Is it always like that? And what are you thinking? Well, wait a minute. Why didn't you call me? My question is, Did you position yourself? Did you tell them you wanted their business in the long run? And again, it's not about badgering them. It's just letting them know how to help you. Everybody in your personal sphere has their own sphere. And my question is, how deep have you gone to their sphere? Previous customers includes those you've even served at previous employers before you got in this business. Most marketing companies think that this is the only category. Have you ever heard the statement, my database of my previous customers? Well, at the very beginning, I told you how extensive that database was beyond that. Now, previous customers are important, very important, but not the only important category. Your best customers are the ones that have already bought from you. If you want to, we just started baseball season. I'll follow with the baseball analogy. If you're on second or third base in baseball, that's called scoring position. Well, with your previous customers, you don't have to convince them that you're reliable, you're going to take care of them. They know that. You're in scoring position. Much better than a cold call where you're at home plate and somebody's throwing 100 miles an hour and you're trying to get on base. You're not likely to score, especially if you have a swing like mine. Now, I've heard this before too, but Dave, I don't have time to call my previous customers. 2 calls per day is 500 in a year. That puts you in position to ask for referrals. And again, it's not just like call them up and say, hey, how you doing? You got a referral for me? Let them know that you're thinking about them. Let them know that you care about them. Ask about their family. That's a great thing about a CRM system is you put notes in there. And believe me, if they're interested in buying or financing, they will bring it up. They will bring it up. You don't have to badger them. But I will guarantee this. You make 2 calls to previous customers per day for the year, and you're going to get more business. Previous prospects, which includes 2 subcategories. Those you turned down, maybe they had bad credit, they didn't have the money, and then who turned you down. Think of this. Did you lose a deal in the past but gain a referral source? I can tell you how to do that. I have a call to make to that person who turned you down 10 days later, which is going to put you in a better position to make that more likely, because success is not an accident. If you had 1 turn into a referral source, why can't you have more previous prospects that you didn't do business with? Turn them into previous prospects. Again, it's about the delivery of value. Even those who decided to do business with someone else, some of them told you they went somewhere else, but they did nothing. Why is that? Because they're procrastinators. And they did that basically to get you off their back. They don't like to be pushed because they're procrastinators. I talk about calling people back even when they decide to go back to somebody else. Not to get the business back, but half the time you may find out they never did anything. Wouldn't that be a good phone call to make when you thought you lost somebody, but you got them back anyway? You've got, when they say they did business, they're going to do business with somebody else, you've got to end the call in the right way. Thank them for the opportunity, even though it feels bad. Tell them you're really interested. You're still going to be a resource. And when you call them 10 days later, you can just say, hey, I still just want to make sure you know you can call me, even though I'm not doing your deal. So, good position to be in. This is all about positioning. Previous coworkers, strike gold with a rich vein of referrals. When someone leaves the industry, what happens to their sphere? I know those who make a living both in mortgages and real estate who make a living mainly from people who have left the industry. So many have left in the previous 10 years. It's a huge segment. They might leave their license and referral status or abandon it altogether. Either way, will you put yourself in position? And by the way, when I say previous coworkers, like previous customers, for those of you who haven't been in the industry that long, how about your previous jobs as well? For example, did you help somebody with their career in your previous job? Well, if you did, they may help you now. The key is telling them how to help you. Let them know how to help you. Professionals, doctors, lawyers, immigration attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, divorce attorneys. Divorces beget more business than probably any other lifetime opportunity for people who are of home buying age. It's not easy business, by the way, but it can be extremely challenging, but it can be very rewarding as well because people are going through stressful times. Accountants, financial planners. Why are professionals important in your sphere? 3 reasons. Number one, professionals do larger transactions themselves. And the last I heard, when you sell a home or do a loan with a larger transaction, you make more money. They have large personal spheres themselves, and even more important, they know other professionals. So if you decide you want to develop relationships with more divorce attorneys know more divorce attorneys. Some targets are more effective than others. That's one of my synergy rules from my Maximum Synergy Marketing book. Vendors, people that you and your family buy from. Major synergy rule here from my book. That is, stop buying from those who are not helping you. Imagine everybody you bought from on a regular basis, you're helping their business. So my question, have you asked for help from them? Again, imagine everybody you bought from was helping your business. What would that do to your business? And that includes those who sell to your targets as well. Those are potential synergy partners because they're selling non-competing things to your target. That might be, partnering up with an insurance agent or somebody like that. Again, vendors are a major, major opportunity. I don't care if it's a business vendor like a printer, or it's a personal vendor like your favorite restaurant. Could they be helping you? They're only going to help if you ask. Associations. We actually already talked about an association. That was church. I always try to teach things in a little bit different way. Many of us were told when you get a phone call, find something in common with the buyer. Well, here's my marketing rule. Start with people you have something in common with. There are religious associations, business associations, like Association of Realtors, academic, PTA, alumni groups, hobbies, golf, interests, ethnic associations, even homeowner associations. When you see all of these associations, these represent a commonality component. I know realtors who are very active in their homeowners association. They're taking a leadership position. These are the largest numbers to add into your sphere. And by the way, it's also a base for advertising. I'm not against advertising, but I want it to be more effective. So when you advertise within your sphere, if you put an ad in your church bulletin or online in the church, Facebook page, whatever it is, right? You're helping the church, but you're also dealing with people that you have something in common with. Concept number 6. First of all, now if we stop for a second, I think you can see how big your sphere really is. And, If somebody wants to make a comment on how big their database really should be, I'd love to see that comment in the panel. But here's one major point I want to make about this: is if you think the number one marketing opportunity is to get referrals from your sphere, I got to tell you, it is more than that. Yes, we want to get more referrals from your sphere, but your sphere, if you have a database of 5,000, or it's actually the ability to generate referrals from your top referral partners. This includes anybody who is in business in your sphere. Think about it. People who can refer you on a regular basis. I don't care if they're a property manager or an insurance agent or whatever. They can refer people on a regular basis. How can you help them? So, and I want you to even think wider here. Not only those that are connected to the transaction. I know you can look at a transaction and say, do you need a quote on insurance? I have somebody I work with. But I'd like you to even open your eyes wider and get broader. If you learn from the founder of BNI, who wrote a book called Money on the Table. And by the way, BNI is the #1 referral organization in the world. He teaches his people to ask this question from their customers. What are the challenges are you facing in your life right now? They may say, well, I got a kid getting married. I don't know where to start. And maybe you have a bridal consultant. Or may say, I have a rental property and I've got to do some renovations on it and I don't know who to call. Well, maybe you've got a home improvement contract. Let me tell you something. You should have these people in your sphere. They should be people you're referring to. Bridal consult. Did you know that 50% of the people who get married either buy or sell a home within 1 year before or 1 year after getting married? Which is why I've always advised loan officers and realtors to go to bridal fairs instead of home buying fairs. There's less competition there, and they're teeming with potential home buyers. That means a bridal consultant could be a great referral source if you're referring business to them. Same thing with home improvement contractors. I've heard so many times, there's a shortage of listings. There's a shortage of listings. Man, I got to tell you, when people think about selling, they don't necessarily call an agent or a loan officer the first thing. They call a home improvement contractor to find out, do I want to sell, or maybe do I want to fix up our place first? Or even if I'm going to sell, what's it going to cost to fix up the place? So home improvement contractors know about listings sometimes even before realtors do. You want them in your sphere, and you want to be in the ability to generate referrals to your top referral partners like this. And a challenge, if you read the book, Money on the Table, the founder of BNI, Ivan Misner, describes all the different challenges in life. By the way, buying a home is a challenge, but so is retirement. So is a medical challenge. There are many different challenges you can help people with when you close with a question like this. I want to remind people that we will be taking questions at the end of the webinar. So I don't see a whole lot in the panel yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing questions and comments as well. Don't be shy. Use the panel. Now, I know there are groups. We had about 60 lines registered today, and there may be a group of 10 listening, and you may not have access to the panel. But for those of you who do, put them in, guys. Okay, let's get to marketing plan steps 2 to 4. I said I would be very quick on these, and we're right on time, but I did not want to ignore them. The main goal today is to get you to see how big your sphere is and how valuable it is. And hopefully I've done that so far. But let's look at the other step. Step 2 is to grow your sphere. So, what I want you to do is I want you to go backwards and forwards simultaneously, one step at a time. If you go back and identify 3 per day you've lost, and you go forward and add 2 per day, you'd be adding 5 contacts per day. That would be 1,200 in a year, 12,000 in 10 years. And let me ask you something. How many of you guys, and I'd like to see it in the panel, have 12,000 in your database right now? Um, all the time, I ask loan officers and realtors, how many you got in your database? And I hear 100, 200, 300, you know? And then I ask them, how many Facebook friends you have? Oh, I got 2,000 Facebook friends. Then I ask them, how come they're not in your database? You want to use Facebook? Absolutely. It's part of growing your sphere. But again, you want to be able to mail them. You want to be able to email them. Your marketing plan has got to be diversified. Growing actions, many different ways. Advertising, again, in your sphere, social media, seminars and public events, networking events, including social media networking. And just don't join an association. Become an expert or a leader in your association as well, whether it's church, whether it's homeowners, alumni association. When you take a leadership position, people are going to come to you for advice. I'm not telling you which of these actions to take. What I'm telling you is when you're thinking about taking a marketing action, ask yourself, how is that going to help me grow my sphere? And remember the word that's at the top there, consistency. If you take on too many marketing activities, that is called the law of infinity. If you take on too many activities, you will never become consistent, which means they will not be as effective as they could be. I'd rather you pick a few and go deeper. Talked about networking within your sphere, transactional networking. Reach other service providers within the transaction. A lot of deals have a CPA behind them, believe it or not, whom you can meet. Sphere networking. You can reach as many real estate agents, financial planners, loan officers, CPAs as you would like. Just ask. For example, your neighbor. Now, your neighbor might know you're a realtor or a loan officer, and they're not likely to list their home, and you can't knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, would you like to list your home? Not going to happen usually. Not going to happen usually. But at the same time, if you knocked on your neighbor's door and said, do you know a financial planner? Do you know a good home improvement contractor? Do you know a bridal consultant? If they do, they're going to introduce you, and you want to do that. For example, an assistant, whether it's a realtor assistant or a loan officer assistant, your assistant has a sphere. Have you reached into their sphere if you have one? Step number 3 is prioritize your sphere. Prioritization is a most important term. Why? Because of the effectiveness. As a matter of fact, if you read any self-help book on improvement of whatever it is, Stephen Covey, any of them, there's always an element or a chapter on effectiveness, on prioritization, and the effectiveness of prioritization. And I could, by the way, I could summarize all those books for you. And that is less effective performers spend time on mediocre tasks, menial tasks. And high producers spend their time on high prioritization tasks, the ones that will get them the most benefit. So, once you get a sphere, you can't call on 3,000 people all at once. You can send them an email. You can get them on social media. But you can't have lunch for 3,000. So when you have lunch with somebody, you're making a prioritization decision. Some targets are more important than others. And by the way, I mentioned before, don't delete contacts. What you want to do is deprioritize them. Perhaps if they move out of state, when they move out of state, you want to let them know. Let's say you're in Jersey and they move to Florida, or they move to Carolina. Well, you want to let them know on a regular basis. If they know anybody who's moving to Jersey, you can help them, right? Um, your sphere will resemble a pyramid. We talked about the pyramid at the beginning. Number one is to move people into your sphere, and goal number two is to move people up in priority sphere. This summarizes the whole marketing plan in 2 steps. Move them in, move them up. At the top should be your top referral sources. Then perhaps your previous customers. And I would move down to the ones on the bottom. Maybe they get a newsletter from you once a month, and that's it. Step 4 is to provide value to 100% of your sphere. This is where positioning comes in. And you want to make sure you're the go-to person for delivering of value. Think about this. In a normal year, maybe 5% of the people in your sphere are buying. But what about the other 95%? You need to continuously provide value. And by the way, getting your referral partners involved might do that. Maybe 1 year or 1 month, you might send an email to your database, would you like an insurance checkup? Which might mean referrals to your insurance partner, and by the way, would be holding them to do the same thing to you. Keep in mind, the typical consumer takes 2 years from conception of thinking about it to purchasing a home. So how are you staying with them through that whole mental voyage that they're going through? You need to position yourself as an expert, not just a loan officer or a real estate agent. And here's probably the most important thing I'm going to say today is remember, value is not what they're interested in. It's not what you are interested in. I know you want to sell homes, you want to sell financing, but it's got to be what they're interested in to be value to them. So therefore, that's why we want to broaden our perspective and get other people involved that are going to help them. If they're interested in home improvements today, you need to help them with that. If they're getting somebody married or they need a doctor, you need to help them with that. You need to become the go-to person for the person in your sphere. Just like Amazon's trying to be the go-to person for everybody in America. That's the position you want to be in your sphere. It's not about branding, by the way. I know you get advice on branding all the time. It's about value, and they need to know where the value comes from. So, speaking of value, let's talk about the ultimate value solution. Are you interested in serving your top referral sources? They're usually in business themselves. Hang on for a second, just looking at a note in the panel. Sorry about that. I talked about your top referral sources. Imagine if you became an expert in sphere marketing and you could teach this to others who are in business in your sphere. If you could deliver this message, this seminar, in a group or one-on-one, you would never be in loss for referral business. This is a quote from one of my clients, Eric Fishman, who lives in Pennsylvania. The flood doors have opened up and I've been swamped. One thing I've been doing is teaching your class on building your sphere of influence. It has been the most talked about class in the company. And it's free. Here's the point. Whatever I taught you today, you can not only use for yourself, but at the same time, you can teach it to others. And there's not one thing I spoke about today that costs a penny. Should you have a CRM where you can keep track? Absolutely. You should have one. Should you have value content that you deliver on a regular basis on social media and within your CRM? Absolutely. But there's no cost here. You're not buying leads. You're not necessarily advertising. Again, referrals are cheap and they're effective. And that's what we're talking about here is referrals. Let's bring it home, make a commitment. And I just drew an example of a value-added instrument. This is one of our newsletters in there. Okay? Making your goals a reality. All journeys start with the first step. Add a certain amount of names per day. It takes discipline. How long have you been promising yourself that you would start compiling things? The results will be worth it, and you will be building a resource that will last a lifetime. So my question to you is, what are you going to do in order to grow and or add more value to your sphere? Put a couple of points in here, and let's make it a public commitment. Put it in the panel. Not seeing enough comments in the panel. Again, I know we have big groups on there, but I'd like to see some comments, or you can email me, success@hirschmangroup.com, and I'd love to share them with you as well. But this is important. I don't know if first of all, I've got some great comments regarding the webinar already, and I appreciate that. But what I would like to see I just got a note that the screen may have been paused at some point, and if that's the case, we will get the slides to you. We will get the slides to you. So I'm going to go over a few questions. They may have just been freezing for certain people, but I do have a couple of quick questions in the panel, then we will finish up. Somebody asked me what the best way to update a database is. And I got to tell you, if you send a postcard out or an email out, what's your contact information, you're not likely to get a great response. So phone calls is the best way to update it. And the good news about phone calls, even if you do 2 a day, it's a great time to get referrals. So it's a great time to get updated on people and get referrals as well. Now, I've seen some people do Amazon gift certificates and contests to get contact information, and you can get some results from that too. But I like the old-fashioned phone calls. 2 a day, 500 in a year. Great time to do it. Great time to do it. So that's a great question. I've had a couple of people make commitments on here. It's great. And I'm